So initially, what drew you in, and what was it about the concept that was enticing?
I loved that it was going to be such a challenge. It was such an interesting new idea. The originality of the material really drew me in. This was a big, giant event film, an adventure movie that wasn't based on a superhero movie. It's not a sequel. The title is taken from a comic book, but that's about it. And I thought, wow, they're coming up with this new idea, and they're mashing together two genres that no one has ever considered mashable before, and I thought it was a really good idea. And I loved the way it was being approached, with a real reverence for the Western genre. It was it's sort of a mixture of Unforgiven and what's the best kind of sci-fi film to compare it to? Close Encounters. So I think that really drew me in, the idea that it was actually a serious take on this idea, with a lot of comedy, of course. Jon-Favreau is directing, and so you've always got a really good wit to the dialogue. But I was drawn in by the people involved and by the originality of the material.
Now talk to me about your character Ella and how she fits into the storyline.
Ella is the female member of this cowboy posse riding out to find their people who've been snatched up by mysterious beings. They think they're demons. She has sort of slinked into town unnoticed. She's very mysterious. She's wearing a gun. She's not a cowgirl or a ranch hand or a prostitute. She's something else. And she's very intrigued by Daniel Craig's blaster that he's wearing, this mysterious bracelet thing. And she needs something from him. And so we immediately sort of wonder whether she has dark intentions, whether she means to manipulate him and use him for good or for evil. So it's an intriguing character, because you actually don't figure out her final big secret until the very end of the movie. But she's just as kind of ballsy as the boys. She's very important in their journey. She becomes kind of their magic weapon. And she brings together the two groups of cowboys and Indians. She sort of becomes the peacemaker and allows them to join forces to defeat the common enemy.
Do you think people are going to relate to that storyline too, about people who generally wouldn't be working together have to come together? It
Yes,
gives it a
it's
human
the
element.
lesson we need to learn, that humanity needs to learn. I mean, this film is about occupying foreign lands and killing the people there and using them and manipulating them. And I think that, that's still happening today. It certainly happened in our history, and it's something we need to learn from. So I hope that people come out of the movie realizing that we have to work together to defeat, common enemies, and also work together to make the world a better place in so many ways. It kind of shows the ridiculousness of the differences between the cowboys and the Indians. They find a common bond in their love for their families, and that makes them realize they're all human, which is something we all need to realize today.
Right. Now, also talk to me then about working with Harrison and Daniel, and actually just even the whole ensemble. It was quite the esteemed cast to put together.
Unbelievable. I couldn't believe I was sitting anywhere near them. I learned a lot from Harrison and Daniel, also from Jon. I'm an aspiring director as well, and so watching him very closely was really interesting to me. Watching people like Sam Rockwell and Paul Dano, who took smaller characters and made such meals out of them. I mean, I think Rockwell's my favorite character in the movie. And I just felt very lucky to be sitting with all these people who really loved Westerns, too. We had John Wayne's grandson is in the movie, Brendan Wayne, so we felt somehow that was a good omen for the project. We had a lot of really great character actors. We had Walt Goggins, who plays the head of the Outlaws, just an extraordinary, funny performance. So I remember our first table read. We were sitting in the old Western town that we ended up blowing up. And I looked around the table and I thought, wow, this is major. This is special. And everybody was very committed. They embraced the language and the history and the tone, and that's why I think it's ultimately successful.
What was your favorite part about shooting, and maybe even the most challenging for you?
Oh, probably riding. Riding with the rest of the cowboys across the desert. It's challenging. We're really galloping with guns on our hips, and the whole process was a challenge. You're also working with cameras, and horses don't like cameras, so you have to work around that too. But it was so thrilling. The stunts were also challenging, but really thrilling too. So there was not a dull day on this project.
Right. Now, talk to me too then about the training, with the guns and even just the horses and everything. What was that process like for you?
Well, the day I was cast, I said, when do I get on a horse? And it was about 3 months before we started shooting, and I drove out to the middle of nowhere in California and started riding hours every day, riding Western, because I grew up riding English, but I'd never ridden Western. So was a learning process for me, and I threw myself into it. I wanted to be really confident on the horse because this is a woman who's been, riding her entire life, and there's an effortlessness to it that I really wanted to capture. When you watch old westerns, you can tell John Wayne has been riding a horse since he was 4 years old. He hardly has to move. He's not holding onto the horn, desperately. So I wanted that to be realistic, and I wanted to be able to tell John, let me do all my own stunts. Mm-hmm. And I remember one amazing day where Daniel and I were galloping across this field, and we were going as fast as we possibly could, and it was just this moment where I realized kind of the enormity of the entire experience and how blessed we were and how cool it was. And that shot is certainly in the movie, and I love it. You can tell we're really flying across the field.
Right. Now, what do you think it is about this? Both genres alone have, existed separately for quite some time. What is it about the mashup, though, that's going to make this a fresh approach?
Well, what they have in common, Westerns and sci-fi, is the idea of the unknown, of battling the unknown. Of people who are sort of pioneers. People in Westerns are often settlers who've gone out west, and they're very brave people for wandering into this unknown territory. And that's the same with sci-fi. It's usually people exploring space and coming up against unknown adversaries. And I think that's what binds them together. I think it makes sense that they come together, but it has to be done with the right technique. And I think that's why we were very lucky to have Spielberg and Ron Howard and Brian Grazer involved as well, because they really know film, and they know how to bring these all these genres separately to their best quality, and then also to meld them together. And Favreau is a master of tone, so he knows how to make it consistent and to keep it grounded in reality.
My last question, what do you think is going to separate this from the other summer releases that we're going to see out there?
I think we're different because we're original. We're not a superhero movie. We're not a sequel. And we are just different. It's a Western, and it's a big Western. It's not 3D. It's anamorphic. It's beautiful. It feels very classic. And I think we're showing people something they've never seen before.